but he was driving a Ford Sierra with a rebuilt engine that he knew was suspect. Now, waiting to take advantage of that was Neil Allport in his Mazda 323. Allport had to win the final round and hoped that misfortune struck Stokes to win the championship.
Hello from Tokoroa for the NZFP Forest Rally, the final round of the Dunlop National Championship. I'm Ian Woodley, with me is Brian Kelly. Let's have a look at the front runners first of all.
Right, Ian. The overall leader after 5 rounds of the National Championship is Brian Stokes from Kaiapoi. He's 30 and has been driving for 12 years. He's in a Group A Sierra XR 4x4. Brian's on 120 points at present, and even though this is a premier round carrying double points, he only has to finish in the top 10 to win this year's title. He won his last national title back in 1985. His co-driver now is Andrew Grundy.
Second on the table is Ray Wilson of Auckland. It was a real surprise on Wednesday when Ray lodged a late entry. He now effectively can put some real pressure on Brian Stokes and must be in with a good chance to win, as he's really proved himself this year. First New Zealander home in the New Zealand World Championship round after blitzing everyone in the first day and a half. He's been very consistent this year, being the only top driver with a 100% finish rate.
Simon Davies is third overall in his Subaru RX Turbo with 77 points. His co-driver is Jeff Judd.
Neil Allport is next on the points table, just 1 point behind Davies. He's always an exciting driver to watch. He's seeded number 1 today. He'll be the first away. He and his co-driver Bob Haldane got to first place in the Rothmans International this year before retiring with an overheated engine and a couple of crashes. Neil's a 31-year-old. He was the 1986 champion.
Next we have Robert Hart with 76 points. Robert was the 1986 junior champion. He's driving the Subaru RX Turbo that Wayne Pittham's won Group A with the same year. Peter Hart is completing his first season in the hot seat as co-driver.
Marty Rostenberg is 6th overall on 64 points, shaping up into a real champion. He's driving a somewhat dated Starlet, but he's always well prepared and came from 29th to finish 6th in the International. His co-driver, Pat Norris, is also leading the Navigator Championship. These guys shouldn't get lost.
Dean Bond is in 7th place and is presently leading the Junior Driver Championship from Stuart Webber. It's open to all drivers under 25. It's a much sought-after title.
The cars don't start in the order of the championship points at the moment. The first car on the road is Neil Allport, seeded number 1. Tony Teasdale starts in the number 2 spot. He was last year's national champion, and he starts with his confidence sky high after an impressive win in Taupo last month. Although Ray Wilson's car has number 62 on the side because of his late entry, the organisers have slotted him in at number 3 on the road. The older Group B cars are still allowed to start in national rallies, but they can't score points. Brian Green drives an Audi Quattro, and Mike Montgomery is in an RX-7. Brian Stokes, the championship leader, starts at number 5 in the big Ford Sierra. Disappointing for him in the International to have the engine overheat when he had got up to 3rd. He knows he only has to finish in the top 10 here to win the New Zealand Championship title.
We're here at the end of Special Stage 2, and we now know that Brian Green in the Audi Quattro has won Special Stage 1 by 3 seconds from Mike Montgomery's Mazda RX-7. But let's see how they handled Special Stage 2, a 10.5 kilometre tarmac stage.
Well, a steady start for Neil Allport on the tarmac. He's only 5th early on, 13 seconds from the leader. These stages are typical opening speed tests designed to get everyone into the groove. Ray Wilson's the fastest of the Mazdas, just ahead of Teasdale and Allport, but the more powerful Group B cars take the early honours. Brian Green makes a strong start in the ex-Hanu Mikula 500 horsepower Audi Quattro to lead by 4 seconds overall from Mike Montgomery in his Mazda RX-7. Brian Stokes is happy to settle in for the much bigger tests ahead. On to gravel roads now with different tyres and a change in driving style needed. Car number 8, that's one of the country's top Toyota drivers, Ross Meekings of Hamilton, 5th in the International in July. And as well as the overall championship, this rally will sort out the New Zealand Junior Champion. Well-known Mini 7 circuit racer Dave Strong has taken an early lead in the race for the Standard Production Group N class in his Daihatsu Charade, although he's too far behind on points to take the overall title from Warwick Smith and his Suzuki Swift. Smith on 90, you can see Strong well back on 26.
Well, the first 3 stages completed now. The first 2 on tarmac, but stage 3 was the first of the real gravel roads, real rally country, 26 kilometres. And the Group A boys put the pressure on the more powerful cars at the front. Wilson and Allport both beat the Group B cars. Allport winning the stage, although he hit a tree on the way through. Now, incredibly, exactly the same time for Ray Wilson and Neil Allport. They're third equal, only just behind Mike Montgomery and Brian Green. The next 2 stages we're going to have a look at in the forest from the chopper. Let's go and have a look. Let's go.
There's Neil Allport, first away. Nice couple of corners for him to slide around to really get the feel of it. Tony Teasdale at full noise on the straight. It's a great view from up here, isn't it? And the third of the top Mazda triplets, Ray Wilson. Ahead of the field, the Zero cars, flashing lights and siren. Apparently there's been a report of some cattle on the road, but the lead car will hopefully clear them all away. Allport is third equal, 13 seconds down. Teasdale is 5th at 16 seconds. He's got the advantage of a 6-speed gearbox compared to the 5-speed box of the other Mazdas. The new leader is Ray Wilson, demonstrating again his ability this year to switch on to the pace early. Brian Green in the ex-Hanu Mikula Audi Quattro equal third with Allport. And Mike Montgomery in the other Group B car, second behind Wilson. But let's join championship leader Brian Stokes and co-driver Andrew Grundy as they tackle the 5th stage. Stokes just dropping off the pace a little bit, but he's still safely in the top 10. It's really quite deceptive how fast the Sierras travel along these straights. He's probably doing about 160 k's. We have got communication with the Stokes Sierra. We'll have a word with them shortly. And there are some cattle too,
Here's
just
the cattle.
up ahead.
Here's the cattle. Let it.
Well, it's looking good from up here, Brian. How's it going for you?
Yeah, it should be going along pretty good. I'm quite happy. Just cruising. See you
Well,
later.
that's the stage safely completed then for Brian Stokes. 7 stages to go.
At Right Cars Toyota, we've invested in more spare parts and more diagnostic equipment and more Toyota trained technicians than all other Toyota dealers combined.
Come and look at our range.
And the largest selection of new Toyotas in New Zealand. So you can choose the model.
That's it.
What about the colour?
And colour. And accessories you really want.
Red.
More investment in your driving. It's why almost 1 of every 2 Toyotas bought is bought from Right Cars. Right Cars Toyota. More Toyota for your money.
Lane can't cheap, grip can't cheap.
Bring me CCs. They are not CCs.
They are corn chips. He will not know the difference. He does know the difference.
Crisp, spicy CCs, delicious corn chips in tangy barbecue, tasty cheese and savory corn. Oh, only CCs is tasting like these.
When few people had heard of Paul MacDonald and Ian Ferguson, Metropolitan Life was helping them achieve their dream. That's not surprising. For more than 25 years, MetLife's been looking after tens of thousands of New Zealanders. These champions come to us for their life insurance, fire in general, mortgages, and now Qtron investments. Winning New Zealanders, winning with MetLife.
When you've planted 100 million seedlings and taken care of them for half a century, you've got a forest to be proud of. A forest to share with your friends. NZFP Forests. Sharing the best with New Zealanders.
Christchurch is reported as economically depressed as leading businessmen discuss the region's prospects. And we talk with Alan Hawkins, does Equity Corp want to sell major assets? Business World, Sunday, 10:05 on 1.
We've just arrived halfway through Special Stage 6 and waiting for the first car. This is a very fast stage. It's described in the route book as light or medium metal. In fact, here comes the first car.
Look out, Brian. Neil Allport noticeably pouring on the pace on the forest roads, chased hard by Brian Green. Brian Stokes dropped another place to 8th on that last stage. He'll have to be careful he doesn't play it too safe. The forest road's opening up now.
To the left, to the left.
The Group N battle's really close. This is Roger Goss and his Mazda, only a few seconds behind Dave Strong's Daihatsu. Marty Rostenberg driving at 11 tenths in his little Starlet.
Push, please. Wait, go, Rossi.
There's Jeff Wright Webb. Maybe that's the latest design from this end. A familiar sight for rally fans of the 1970s, a Ford Escort, sideways of course. Back in Tokoroa for lunch and repairs. The official results confirm one of the great drives so far has come from Motorsport President Maury Chandler, who's hardly raced this year.
Up into 6th place, so I would think most would be a bit surprised at how well you're going considering the amount of driving you've had this year.
We're pretty pleased, and yeah, I think we might have opened a couple of eyes.
Yeah. Do you think it perhaps is because you're so relaxed?
I think that's got a lot to do with it, because we've got nothing to prove and nothing to gain. We're just here for the day's fun.
Sometimes the calls or the corners on the route book are not as we would see them. The last stage, for instance, we thought the corner was a sweeping left-hand corner, but in actual fact it was a 90 left, and we had our moments there, but we didn't come to grief, so that's the main thing.
Brian, the Group B cars are banned in World Championship rallies. This could be the last time in our national events. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's very sad that that happens, and, you know, I don't know if that will be the last time you see them. I think if enough of us get together and have a good lobby group, you might see them back here again next year. I think it'd be lost to the sport if you don't have them.
Do you get just as big a thrill from driving this type of less modified car as the front runners do?
Well, it's a different type of thrill altogether. You probably tend to attack the corners and brake later than you do with a lot of horsepower, because horsepower it's easy to cruise around and then squirt down the straight.
Lunch is over. Now to stage 7, one of the longest at 36 k's. Still only seconds between the leaders at the top of the field, and the same in the Group N class. We'll go and have a look in the forest over here. The leaders have already started. This is Dave Strong, still holding on to his Group N lead, and in the top 15 overall. Even these Group N cars travel really quickly on these forest roads. A lot of pressure on him from the other Group N drivers, especially Roger Goss. Our ground camera catches Neil Allport near the stage end, and true to his word, he's making a big charge after lunch. Tony Teasdale's passed this point already, 30 seconds down on Allport. Ray Wilson's also lost a full half minute to the flying Allport. This is Gary Smith in his 4x4 Sierra. He's had problems all day, running mostly with rear-wheel drive. You can see that by the amount of slide that he's getting. The Tokoroa forest workers enjoying the high-speed racing on their home patch. Roger Goss still trying to close the gap on Group N leader Dave Strong. Dean Bond working hard to keep his lead in the Junior Championship. This is stage 8, 21 kilometres, again on gravel, with the middle of the field facing the starter. The leaders are already well down the road. Neil Allport's brilliant drive in stage 7 has given him what could be a rally-winning break. 39 seconds his lead now, with Ray Wilson second and Tony Teasdale third, another 22 seconds back. Neil Allport may have developed a reputation over the years for driving too hard, but there's no doubt when he decides to pour on the pressure, there are very few who can stay with him. It's amazing how quickly these Group A cars have developed over the past 2 or 3 years. No one would have dreamed a Mazda 323 could beat an Audi Quattro with twice the horsepower. But it happens nowadays.
It's been a long time since I've driven stages like this, though.
Oh, it's a bit rough in there.
Oh, no, it's not rough, but it's, you know, like it's fast, it's a lot of deceptive corners, but it's really good. It's definitely not better than public roads. Real demanding stuff, great.
That one, man. Yes, we're going through struts very quickly, I'm afraid.
Going through what?
Suspension struts. 2 in the front last time, 2 in the back now.
A slow time for Brian Green. Oh, no wonder he's driven the last few Ks on the rim. Stage 9 is another 25 Ks of gravel, with Allport still pushing hard. Tony Teasdale's Mazda sounds a bit off song. Ray Wilson holding second, but he can't close on Allport on these roads. Brian Stokes comfortably in 7th place. And Mike Montgomery giving the RX-7 heaps. Allport's great drive is even more impressive when you remember he hit that tree that cost him time on stage 2.
How much time did you lose?
Probably 20 seconds pulling out of the little ditch that we actually ended up in. And then we took it easy for about 3 Ks because we had this terrible grinding noise, which was the
the seat belt bolts touching the drive shaft, but once they were worn away, the noise went, we were back in it.
Allport starts stage 9, safely ahead of his rivals. Gary Smith struggles on with the Sierra, but out of the top 10. Mike Montgomery certainly got the Mazda going much better after suspension troubles earlier. This is Ray Wilson, still trying desperately to make an impression on Allport's lead. The familiar red Sierra of Brian Stokes, the championship leader, still cautiously pacing himself to make sure of reaching the finish. The daylight stages are over. Now we're in the last stage of the rally. Wilson has closed the gap on Allport to 40 seconds, but it's hard to see him pulling back that time under these conditions. It is a long stage, 42 kilometres, but Allport's had enough experience to know just how fast he needs to go. As long as he doesn't have any mechanical problems or a puncture, he should win the rally reasonably comfortably. Enjoying their moment of glory after a hard day's work, NZFP rally winner Neil Allport and co-driver Bob Haldane. A typically aggressive drive from the South Auckland speedster at a pace which few in this country can match. Second on the day, Ray Wilson, who's really come out of the shadows this season to establish himself up with this country's best rally drivers. And third, Tony Teasdale, after a difficult season developing his new car. Teasdale's often talked about retirement, looks a year or two away yet. The 1988 Group N title goes to Warwick Smith and his Suzuki Swift. But the top prize for the 1988 season to Brian Stokes from Kaiapoi. The national championship title returns to the South Island.
Well, the NZFP Forests event may have been regarded as a success by drivers and spectators alike, but the Dunlop National Championship is likely to change next year. The International may well be involved, and all events thrown open to drivers from both islands. Now, in about 45 minutes, we'll take in America's Cup action.